Stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't know if anyone else feels like I do, but everything happens the first 2 weeks of this month. So here we are, the 15th. A lot of people were thinking that we're meeting next Monday. Nope, it's today. So here we are. We have a pretty good program tonight. I got a message from Attorney Tregesser, who is also running for district court judge, and he was unable to make our meeting last time. So he asked if he could talk to the crowd today, and I agreed. Anyone is welcome at our meetings. Anyone is welcome to come and address us if they ask, and since he is a candidate for office, I'm going to let him take the floor. I have discussed briefly with him that we talked about the blueprint for reform. He had spoken with some of the judges, I believe, and talked about some of the things that were said at our last meeting. So I'm going to let him address us first and foremost, and we're going to see if we can't have a relatively easy meeting tonight. His opponent is a sitting judge at this time. It's Dick Leland. I'll let him wrap it up as soon as Mr. Tregesser is done. Can we do that, Dick?
Perfect.
Thank you. Mr. Tregesser, would you like to take the floor?
Thank you. Thank you for lending me your ears tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the group this evening. One of the reasons I wanted to come back and come to this meeting tonight was based on what I had heard from the last meeting, and I understand that many of the candidates had appeared and that you were delivered some information that might have been considered conflicting information. I know that the district court judges on the bench that have been working hard on the bench, like Judge Leland, had taken the position that they hadn't been given enough credit for what's been occurring, and I know that some of the lawyers that are running for judge had taken the position that a lot of changes needed to be done, and they were in the best position to do that. And so there were, as I understand it, some conflicting viewpoints, and so I'm not sure if the crowd left even more confused or if they had come to their own conclusion as to what they thought the status of the district court was. Regardless of win or lose, I think it's important that the public who spends time wanting to get to know the candidates do leave informed. And so what I'm here is I'm just another voice at the podium today trying to inform you. The information that I do have today comes from 26 years of being a lawyer in this community, primarily a criminal defense attorney. I've been a public defender for many, many years. I considered myself to be a public servant lawyer at almost every level: state, federal, felony, Supreme Court. I've been a juvenile lawyer, guardian ad litem. I've assisted juveniles in involved in the Family Reconciliation Act. We're subject to dependencies. I'm a guardian ad litem, and I've been doing this for a long, long time. I was the public defender for Ponderay County for almost 10 years, and then I found my way into doing this sort of unique area of law that currently involves 350 people that are currently housed at the Special Commitment Center, what's called the Sexually Violent Predator Statute. And this has come up a lot now since I decided to file. And there's a former client of mine that keeps coming up. And I've been reading things on Facebook, and I've been reading things in other areas. People have come up to me and are very critical and don't consider me to be a good candidate simply based on the fact that I have represented, I'll just simply name him, Kevin Coe in the past. And if one of the platforms taken by the judicial officers and the public this time around is smart justice and access to justice, then I think that we should be open-minded that everybody has a right to access to justice. And one of the primary functions of a judicial officer is the appointment of counsel. and they have to appoint counsel. I was appointed counsel in that particular case. And before I get into that too much further, I wanted to just stress the fact that I think district court is in good shape. And I'm not sure there needs to be a major turnaround in this election season. I really don't. I do think that the sitting judges are informed judges. They're people of good character, including Judge Leland. I think they're experienced, and I think they work hard every day. And this has been an ongoing process for the last 26 years that I've been a lawyer. We do have a judicial system that's over 200 years old, and we have to be careful as to how many changes we make. I see Mr. Haskell here, and our judicial system is actually followed by many countries. I know the United States Attorney's Office, Mr. Haskell was a part of that. We send people over to different countries that are ravaged and torn, and we try to establish and set up criminal justice systems that are exactly like this here in the United States. So it's a good system. So I just wanted to say, I think the system is in good hands right now the way it is, and I'm not sure that we need a major change in judicial officers. I'm running, however, saying that because I do have a lot of background, I believe, in the area of criminal offending, the criminal justice system, police, mental health, chemical dependency issues, alternatives to ordinary prosecution, and that experience has come over the last 25 years. But I want to say this, and I don't want to call it the elephant in the room, but it's been coming at me hard, and I've been reading some very negative things. And if we are taking the position that one of the things that we care about is access to justice, then I don't think lawyers should be criticized based on the people who they have been appointed to represent. And that is access to justice. Judicial officers appointing people to represent people, no matter who they are, no matter how notorious they may be, whether they're part of Spokane lore in a bad way, people need to be represented. And I've been reading I've been described as slimy, I've been described as underhanded. I've read a couple of posts that I would never be considered a worthy candidate because I've represented somebody. And I just want to talk about this case that's working against me, because I don't think it's my experience that's working against me. Whatever, perhaps my judicial temperament might be working against me. I've been known to be kind of a fiery lawyer, but I want to make something really clear. As it stands now, there are 350 people housed at the Special Commitment Center in Washington. We were the first state to enact the sexually violent predator law, and it was designed to detain people who lack control over their sexually violent impulses, and number two, who are likely to reoffend. It's for people who lack control over themselves, and those people have a right to a jury trial on that issue. And when I defended this case, and I defended other cases like it, I took the position that my client didn't lack control over what he did. I took the position that my client actually controlled and had control over his impulses and was fully responsible for what he did. It's true 40 women testified in that trial, but none of the women testified at that trial and pointed to Mr. Coe as being the perpetrator, and the state did that on purpose. And they did that to avoid the victims from being cross-examined as to whether or not Mr. Coe was the perpetrator. They simply described what happened to them, and I didn't have to do that. In fact, I'm actually very proud of the way I handled that case. Before those 40 women testified, they were all deposed by me, and I did it with dignity and I did it with honor, and I wanted to make sure that they were not re-victimized. Some of the women, when the state filed the petition, had never told their families that they were victimized by Mr. Coe. It was the very first time that they approached their husbands and their children and said, for the first time, I need to tell you about what occurred in my past. And it was very traumatic for the people. But the victims actually gathered, and they were strong, and they came in strength together. But one thing that I think is a misnomer is that I didn't attack these individuals. I just simply addressed what occurred. How the state the state took the position that they were going to attribute the offenses to Mr. Coe based on other people, a signature analysis who came in and testified, and he said these all had the same signature, so I think it's Mr. Coe. They also brought in law enforcement who said, I think it's Mr. Coe. But as far as the victims went, coming back a quarter century later, that's not what occurred. And so I don't consider myself to be slimy. I don't consider myself to be not worthy of being a judicial officer because I took that case. And in fact, the steps that I took in that case I thought were very professional. And I tried to defend my client to the best of my ability without victimizing those people any further and their families. And I thought that I did a very good job at doing that. And that's what simply the case was about, whether or not, and that's what these cases are about, whether or not the individuals lack control or are they responsible. And I think the position that I took, that Mr. Coe was responsible for what he did, and he doesn't lack control and is not mentally ill, I don't feel like that was an underhanded, slimy thing to do. I think it was a pretty reasonable, straightforward argument. But that's never how it's going to be seen. It's just Coe, Coe, Coe. And if I lose this, it's not going to be totally about Coe. It'll be probably because Leland, people feel that Judge Leland is the better candidate. But I want to mention this because I've been hearing access to justice, access to justice, access to justice. If we all believe in that, and if we would raise our hand that this is one of the things that we're concerned about, then we need to be careful about criticizing lawyers who provided somebody access to justice, even if the person is so notorious as Kevin Coe. Because I think that if we're talking, I think that we might be, and I'm not saying anyone in here is doing that, but I think other people are doing that. I'm hearing them say one thing, but this guy represented Coe, and so do we really believe that all people deserve access to justice? And this seems to be one of the new things that people are talking about, and I believe in that. One of the primary responsibilities of the judicial officer is the appointment of counsel. Day one, the judicial officer has to make sure somebody is appointed counsel. That's the responsibility. I was appointed counsel. I carried out my responsibilities. And so, enough of that, unless anybody else has any questions about that. I only bring that out because it's just been overwhelming from what the information that is coming to me as not being, I don't know what people think. Because I'm a defense attorney, I would be irresponsible as a judicial officer. I think what I bring to the bench is 25 years of being a criminal lawyer from, as I say, working in federal court, white-collar crimes, major crimes, violent crimes. And I want to say this, district court is very, very important. Even though district court is what I would consider an entry-level court, DUIs, domestic violence, if you look at every offender that has ever gone on to commit crimes of violence against people, homicides, sexual offenses, sexual crimes against children, very often they have a history of criminal activity that went through district court. And I always wanted to go back with some of the most notorious people that we've ever seen in this community and see what occurred in district court. It's very hard to do that. And what district court judges did they see the warning signs? Did they see anything? Did they try to intervene? Did anybody miss it? Did law enforcement miss it? Mr. Coe is a perfect example. He actually went through the district court for a couple of offenses. One was grabbing a woman by the breast long before he graduated into these other alleged offenses. District court's important because you have to have a sense. The probation officer has to have a sense if they're involved. The prosecutor has to have a sense of whether or not this individual is truly a threat to the community in the future, or whether or not they may be, or whether they may not be a threat. Whether this type of behavior truly impacts our community, or whether or not it doesn't. Does it impact it or doesn't? District court judges serve a vital purpose in this community. And it's not just dealing with DUIs, and it's not just dealing with domestic violence. It's trying to identify people who, somewhere down the road, are there warning signs that are right before them, based on the information that they have as to whether or not they can pick those people out and stop for a moment, pause, and may want additional information before they make sentencing decisions and judgments. Because Judge Leland, if he wins the election, will have somebody before him someday, 10 years down the road, 4 years down the road, that will probably kill somebody. That's just a statistical fact. He will have somebody that come before him, if he's on the bench for the next 4 years, that probably will go out and rape somebody. That's a statistical fact. And it's important for district court judges to try to be as aware as they can as to whether or not that offender that's before them, even if it's a driving while license suspended or domestic violence, whether or not they are dangerous and pose a threat. They have a limited amount of information, and there's a heavy burden on the prosecutor's office to present that information to the judges, because the judges can't gather the information themselves. From what I've heard, Judge Leland's doing a terrific job. I met Judge Leland. I knocked on his chamber's door before I decided to run. I introduced myself, and I found him to be a man of good character. So if he wins, and we all wake up the next day, I think that we'll all be in good shape. I think if I win, I think that the community will be in the same shape. I think we'll be doing just fine. And I don't think anything major I don't think we'll have any major differences except for this. There will be periods of time where that person will come before that court, and that person is going to go out and do something in the future. And will the district court judge be able to identify that offender at that moment in time when they're before them for domestic violence, an alcohol-related offense, and assault? Will they be able to do that? They don't have a crystal ball. They just do the best they can. And I do think, and this comes down to experience. I'm not a better lawyer than the judge. I'm here to say, and simply say that I think experience means a lot. Larry Haskell's here. Excellent candidate to be our prosecutor because he has experience. He's been in federal court and he's worked hard. I've had cases with Larry Haskell for many, many years. He's a tough prosecutor and have a lot of respect for him. And I think he's doing a terrific job. And I think that maybe, I don't want to speak for anybody here today, but I think that Larry Haskell might agree that experience means a lot, whether you're a law enforcement officer, a prosecutor, or judicial officer. So I'm here to say two things. I heard that some of the candidates are saying that last week or last month that the district court system is broken and it needs change and it needs an overhauling. I don't believe that's the case. I believe we all can make changes, and certainly there can be improvements. But we're talking about a system that's been here for over 200 years. We're talking about a courthouse that has a tower that was built over 100 years ago, and if you go into that courthouse, it has pictures of horses and buggies there, and for generations, our grandparents have come in there, our great-grandparents, and our children and our grandchildren are going to be going to that same courthouse. And if we see that tower, and we all can rely on the fact, when we see that tower, that in this dog-eat-dog world, there is a place in which justice will be served. And I think that tower doesn't serve any useful function, but it's there as an example. It's there at telling us that there's a place that we can expect justice to occur. And so we need to be careful about how quick we make changes, because I do think the system has worked in many, many ways. But everything needs change, but the issue is how much. So I felt like it was incumbent for me to come in here when I heard this clash of it's broken, it needs changes, and then the current judges saying, we've done our best, yeah, we agree, some changes need to be made, but we're making them and we don't get enough credit. I don't think the current judges get enough credit. I don't. And I don't believe that the people running for judge that aren't judges, I don't believe in the wholesale proposition that we need a complete overhaul of the district court judges. I just don't believe that. And you might find that surprising, but I'm not taking that position. I'm not taking that position at all. I'm here to tell you, as a lawyer in this community, having at least 5,000 cases in the district court, I think we're in good hands. I just think some improvements need to be made. And I'll just leave you with that. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for me. Terrific, yeah,
Hypothetical one at best.
you bet.
If we have videotape of O.J. Simpson slicing up his wife and her boyfriend, would you defend him?
Yes,
How about Bill Clinton, videotape of Juanita Broaddus being raped by Bill Clinton, would you defend him?
yes.
Okay? You're telling me a lot about yourself.
What does that tell you?
So you're a liberal, and you obviously have a point of view that everybody needs it. I agree with that, but I'm just finding, where do you draw a line? How would you say no to anybody?
I don't.
Okay?
I don't. This is a system of justice and access to justice, and people need to be defended. We cannot pick and choose people who we think are heinous and avoid their defense and just jump to the punishment stage. And what does that? It tells you that I'm a liberal, that I would agree to defend.
Yes.
Do you not believe that everybody should be defended?
I believe that. I'm just wondering where you draw the line. Is there any line you would draw?
In
On
terms
defending anybody, everybody absolutely Pol Pot, you would defend him. If you know who he is.
I think the line would be drawn. I would never defend somebody who committed a crime against a family member or somebody I knew, because I wouldn't be able to do it.
So if somebody killed your wife, you would say no to that.
Yeah, because I wouldn't be able to do
All
that.
right, we finally found the line.
Yes.
I'm curious, I guess I kind of have a problem with people running against people who are doing a good job. Now, you're saying Judge Leland is doing a good job, however, you're running against him.
Yes.
Why would that be?
Well, I've reached a point in my career that I would, you know, in terms of, when you reach a point after doing 50 first or second murders over the last 25 years, hundreds of sex offenses, violent crimes, being across the river, doing federal offenses, immigration issues, tribal issues, you just reach this point where you want to take what you have, this experience, and you want to bring it to a larger level and try to have a larger impact on the community because you've reached this point. Somebody, I have to choose somebody to run against. And I chose Judge Leland. Not because I don't think Judge Leland's doing a good job. I chose Judge Leland because I feel, having been a criminal lawyer in the system for 25 years, I feel like I have more criminal experience, and it's a criminal court. I just simply feel that way, and my resume would outline what my experience is. That's the reason I chose Judge Leland, because of the experience that I have and looking at the judge's resume in terms of the criminal background and not seeing the same level of experience. So I feel like I could serve the community better as in a criminal court. Yes?
You had referenced character amongst the current bench. From a political activist perspective, what is your relation of character and ethics in terms of campaigning? Because on my daily route to work, I've seen houses with both yours and Dick's signs in their yard, and I wonder what you said to them to convince them to put your sign in their yard, as well as putting signs on private property that I for certain have documentation that you don't have permission to put signs up on. I'm just aware of your character and ethics in terms of
It's a good question.
running a campaign.
I've been contacted by two people who have indicated to me, they called me and asked that the judge's signs be removed, and they called me and the person wanting to put up the judge's signs had indicated when the person wanted the sign removed, I support Tim Tregeser, the response was, did you know we represented Kevin Cobb? And I find that to be, and that was not the judge saying that, it was just somebody wanting to put up one of the judge's signs on two different occasions. And I know both people well. One was a client and one is somebody who I know. And I find that ironic. If your position is, as a judicial officer, I am for access to justice, to take the position, I would like to put a sign up in your yard because did you know, by the way, he represented Kevin Coe. I find that to be polar in its inception, because are you really for access to justice if you are critical of me for representing Kevin Coe? So if you're
None of your signs appeared before Judge Leland's. Every single one of them appeared after his. His was up first in the yard, and then within a few days, within a week or two, all of a sudden there was another sign, and it was yours.
Right.
Within the same property.
Okay. What about it?
How do you convince someone to also put up a sign of an opponent in the same yard?
I would say I can only think of 4 to 5 examples where my signs are in the same yard as Judge Leland. And I'll be honest with you, the reason I started rapping at the door because I had received 2 calls from people who had indicated that they were trying to convince somebody from Judge Leland's, somebody helping Judge Leland, that they should put their sign there and not Tregeser's because I had represented Kevin Coe. So I rapped at the door to see if this was true. And the person who allowed me to put a sign there and I'll be very honest, one of the response was, I didn't even know the sign was there, I didn't care, and it's nice meeting you, I'd be happy to put your sign up there too. I didn't say, if you're suggesting that I had said something negative about the judge, I don't think you would have ever heard that, because that was never true.
I have no reference whatsoever. I'm just curious from a Politico, you send a mixed signal, for one. If you put your sign up, secondly, ask them to take the opponent's sign down. In past history, people don't reference that that's actually who you're running against because voters are not educated.
Okay. Judge Leland's signs, I think, presumably would be up first because his signs were made and put up first.
Correct, on private property.
Yeah, and so I think it's fine to go
But you have every right to go convince a voter to vote for you, but would you not ask them to take down your opponent's sign if they're putting yours up?
No, I never asked anybody to do that. I never.
That's the answer I want.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I find it really interesting because I did pretty extensive research before our last meeting, anticipating that all 8 candidates would be here. I did not know that you represented Kevin Coe.
That's the first reference I've heard.
I did not know. Did anyone else in this room know that? No. Well, you know. God, Larry, of course you know. I read the book, son. That was an incredible case. And Jerry, I think to have someone represent someone of, that degree, this was an evil person. A spoiled son, an evil person. But if someone didn't represent him that would be fair to the victims, it could have been even so much worse for those victims. So it's not just the right of representation, but how it was handled is what I picked up on that. As a doctor also wouldn't say, this person did some bad thing, I'm not going to treat him. An attorney won't either. And I can see where you're coming from about drawing that line, but for me, I appreciate that I remember that case way long time ago. Those victims went through hellish situations and circumstance, and to put them through it again and again and again would have been a disservice to them. So for that, I appreciate it, but I did not know that. And so that just to assure you, that was never brought here. Our sole focus was the Blueprint for Justice.
Good.
And Smart Justice.
Good.
Your character or situation, since you were not here to defend yourself, was never brought forward. So I would say I appreciate your coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know that I really need the microphone. Anyway, I'm Judge Leland, Dick Leland. I think I know a good number of you. I've been seen in Republican groups around for the last few years. But like I say when I'm knocking on doors, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm a judge. So I really mean that. There are some interesting differences between Mr. Tregeser and myself, and I think he's pointed out some of them. One of the things that I need to point out is that I've been practicing law about 24 years. My side is not on the criminal side, mine is on the civil side. And I like to point out to the court that a good number of our cases, in fact a significant amount of our cases are in fact civil. A good number are. And so when it comes to that, I certainly would have an edge. With regard to the civil matters, I was involved with a good amount of very extensive tort litigation. Was involved in a very significant amount of legal research over my 24 years. I handled cases involving Hanford, the downwinder cases. I've handled cases involving gas explosions and so on and so forth. So I have a very significant legal background. I can say, well, I've been a judge pro tem for 7 years, and I've been also a judge for a year. Has there been any issue that I haven't been able to figure out? Is there any issue that Really, I'm just so confused. No. This is a people's court. It's a relationship type court. Like Tim indicated, there's a huge number of cases. And I think what you need to look at in a judge is more, somebody has to have the ability to handle the cases. You have to have the confidence and you have to have the passion, but you have to have that relationship. I agree that we touch a lot of people, and it's my job to somehow find out who those dangerous people are. How do I do that? Well, I've lived on this earth about 60 years, and I've been involved with a lot of different situations. And you can see my resume and my biography on the district court website. I'm not going to bore you with that, but I can tell you that I represent you. Every day when I go, I jump into your shoes. I want to keep the community safe. I want to hold criminals accountable, and I want to listen to you. I've knocked on, literally knocked on 2,500 doors. One of the things that people ask me is, gosh, a judge has never come to my door. And very seldom. There are probably, out of those 2,500, there's probably a handful that ask me who my opponent is, surprisingly enough. Nobody asks me who my opponent is. Most people don't understand what court is what. They don't understand the difference between superior court and municipal court and district court. I give them a very much of an overview. When they ask me who my opponent is, I certainly name Mr. Kregeser. Do I answer or do I provide additional information? No, I don't have to. They can Google that. They can look and see whatever. But do I actually, I'll be honest with you, except for my daughter Kayla and my son Clay and myself, nobody has knocked on any doors that I know of. Maybe my wife a few in the last few weeks. It's me, it's my son, it's my daughter. So, my apology, Tim, if there are those out there that have actually indicated that I mentioned anything like that. One of the things that I can provide is this blueprint for justice. What's that all about? The blueprint for justice is essentially this. It's essentially that we have some issues in the courts, we have issues in the criminal justice system, and we've got to make it better. We have limited resources, and how are we going to do it? How are we going to shake up things, and how are we going to get better? How are we going to keep the community safe? How are we going to keep criminals accountable? How are we going to do it? The district court needs to get off its tail and make changes. We're involved in technology. The wheels aren't coming off the wagon. The wheels aren't. We're very involved in technology and cutting edge, and we're committed to going forward on that. But we have to get better. One of the things I always ask when I go to the door, I always ask, do you have any good ideas with regard to making the courts better? My court or any courts? I say, well, any courts. If you do, I know everybody in all these other courts. I also say, do you have any ideas with regard to making the criminal justice system better? I give them my email address, and I have had people actually email me back. But what I think is, and what I always say, is sometimes the people that are closest to the situation don't see it and don't have the creative ideas. There are a lot of creative people out in our community, and it's my job to somehow solicit those ideas and get those ideas in and be a conduit. And I believe that I can be that conduit. There is some issues with regard to leadership in district court, at least that is what has been alleged. I can be the person that reaches out. I actually did that. I didn't represent Kevin Coe, but I actually worked with Kathy McMorris Rogers. For some of you, that is probably a bad word. I was her district director for a year and a half. Taking away the politics, it comes down to this. I attended hundreds of meetings. I met thousands of people. I know a lot of people. I know good ideas when I see good ideas. And I think I can somehow reach out and somehow bring some of those good ideas and bring those contacts out. Whether it be with the prosecutor's office, whether it be the sheriff's office, public defender's office, or whatever. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about making things better. So that's kind of it in a nutshell for me. You know, I'm good at what I do. I think Tim would be good at what he does, and I think he would be a good judge. But I think I'm a better judge in this situation. I'm not going to let anybody out of my courtroom. I've got a toughness, and I can make good decisions. But I filter all of the decisions. And one of the things I always say, and I guarantee this, Tracy's my judicial assistant, and we talk about this. If you come into my courtroom, you'll be treated like a family member. I honestly mean that. So, and if you are not treated well and with respect and with dignity, there's a problem. So, that's kind of it for me. I have no problem with Tim. Tim did come into my office before he ran. I told Tim it took a lot of courage. I remember Tracy came back with a yellow card and said, Tim Treckesser's here, you know, give him a call. I said, Tim, you know, come on back, and we did have that conversation, so I respect that immensely. So that's about it. If anybody has any questions, Tim, you can come up as well, if there's any for me or for Tim.
Yeah, let's spend just a couple more minutes and then we'll get to Larry Haskell, who is our key speaker tonight. I did want to give Tim the opportunity to speak. It was very important to him to do that. You guys should be able to meet him tonight, as well as to make that fair, then have Judge Leland back as well. So, any other questions about the district court? It is, in my opinion, probably one of the most important offices that you can hold, and yet we never know our judges. We never know who's running. So thank you for coming so we can meet.
I have one more comment, and this is I would not have wanted an opponent. I would not have wanted it. I would have rather enjoyed the summer. But it makes you a better judge. It connects you to the community. It gives you a new sense of confidence. I know exactly what the community wants. I've talked with so many people. I think I am better able to represent with confidence what you people want. I'm representing each and every one of you every day.
Everyone in this room has a CMR sign in their yard, by the way.
Okay.
Just so you know.
She may not be popular in some circles, but she is a great person, and she's got some great people working with her.
And on that note, I'm going to take just a real quick moment here and introduce some of the other candidates that are in the room. This is probably one of the lightest meetings in attendance that we've had in a long time, because it has been an extremely busy summer. But we're passing around a card right now that Dave Moore had printed up for our fair booth. On this card, you will see all of the Republican candidates who are running for office, as well as 2 initiatives. These are the ones with the initiatives on them. So I want you to take these cards. If you want more that you can help and pass to your neighbors, etc., the Spokane GOP has them. So you would contact Dave. Of the candidates that are in the room, not including Larry, you look like a candidate, are you a candidate? Oh, good, okay, because I was going to say, boy, I'd be embarrassed if I didn't know you. But I'm going to go ahead and let Mike Patton introduce himself as our senator. Yeah.
Hi, I think most of you know me. I'm State Senator Mike Patton, represent the 4th Legislative District, which you're in. Goes from basically Havana to the state line, and from the South Valley up to near, not quite to Riverside High School, cuts across everything east to Highway 2. But I just want to say it was very interesting for me to listen at least a part of both Mr. Treckesser and Mr. Leland, having been a district court judge for a little over 12 years. And I know both of them, and I respect both of them, and I'm glad that they both were able to come tonight and explain their views. Anyway, one of these times, again, I'll speak to you, and I could go on for a lot more time than I have tonight. But I just want to introduce myself and, again, commend you for all the good you do for all the candidates out here.
Mr. Fitzgerald, would you like to stand up and ask for money?
No. But you're going to anyway.
He hates that. I had to.
Good job.
Bargain-basement campaign.
Good job.
He hates that. He is just, he's so sweet and he hates to ask.
But I will say one thing, though. One of the things that both of the gentlemen mentioned, both Mr. Treckesser and Judge Leland, is that electronic case filing. And that's something in the Superior Court that we're working on right now. That's one of the big goals we've been working on. I owe a brief to our county commissioners in 2 weeks. And in that brief, we're gonna tell them what our position is going to be for the system that's coming down from the state. The state is directing that we take a system, a document management system, based on a system called OnBase. And I'm gonna be a non-concur with that. And the reason being is we have a current system called Applicator Extender, which is much better than the system being offered by the state. And so I need to brief the commissioners on why we're doing that out. That will cause some problems with us getting money for the system down the road. But the point is, the system we have now can grow, it can expand, it can do all the things we want a document management system to do. The bigger point is the system has to work between district court, municipal, superior court administrator, the juvenile court, and the clerk's office, the sheriff, prosecuting attorney, and the public defender's office. If you can't get all those people working together, then we're wasting our time with e-filing and electronic case management. So if we're gonna do it, we need to do it as a holistic county approach. So that's what we're doing right now. Just to give you a full update on that. And Bev, I will come back in about a month or two and brief you on what the decision was.
And that's perfect.
And then
Didn't
he'll
we
ask
do a
for
good?
money.
Yes, no extra money.
Didn't we do a good job getting Tim into office? Be sure to, I'm gonna go down the line here. Kathy McMorris Rogers' office is represented tonight by Kevin Nims.
Hey everybody. I guess things are going well, the campaign trail. Same thing as always, yard signs, doorbelling, phone calling, anything you guys can give to us, any volunteer help you guys can give to us, we greatly appreciate that. A couple of things on the coming down the pipeline. This weekend is the last real weekend of fairs, events, parades, festivals for the duration of the campaign. So be aware of Valley Fest this weekend. Be aware of Rockford, Southeast County, Spokane County Fair and Parade. Our campaign is going to be, we're going to have a presence out in Odessa in Lincoln County. Not really your guys' territory, but we're going to be attending Deutsches Fest. It should be a good time. And if there's any, you guys have any questions or comments, or want to talk to myself or Ian or any of our other staff about things going on in the area, come on down to the office, 107 South Howard Street, corner of First and Howard in downtown Spokane, or you can call us 509-624-1199. Always a pleasure to be here. Thanks, guys.
And Kevin, this is Carol Snyder.
Yeah,
Carol,
already talked.
did you already meet each other and get things worked out for Rockford? Good.
Well, I need everybody to come.
Okay. We want to make that a
Parade represents
What's the dates on
Aussie,
that?
and, well, Rockford Parade is
Saturday the 20th.
Yep.
And we have Valley Fest is
9:30 in the
also.
morning, you gotta be there.
It's a really, no kidding, everything in September seems to me to have fallen all at once. It's just craziness.
Hey, Bev, the Valley Fest is at 7:30 Friday night. That's the parade.
So you could go to Rockford, you could
That's
run,
Saturday.
No, Friday night's.
Friday night is Valley Fest. at
it
7.
doesn't go through Saturday?
It goes,
Yes,
yeah.
Saturday and
The whole
Sunday.
weekend.
Start off in the parade on Friday night at Valley Fest and go to the Rockford Parade on Saturday.
Saturday.
And then run back to
And then
Valley
come back,
Fest
yeah.
and work a booth, and then, yeah. I'm tired, I don't know about you. Our main speaker tonight is Larry Haskell.